This video has been something I have been just itching to film. It means I'm going to be writing a lot more often for ever now. Hey friends, welcome in. My name is Autumn and today I am going to be giving you an all things writing update. The last couple of years, if you didn't know, I went back to school to get my master's degree. I'm happy to say that I crossed the stage just a couple of weeks ago. I officially have my master's degree and I have all this free time. So that means I can get back to writing. I have 3 projects that have been very much neglected since August of 2024. The point of this video is to reintroduce these projects to you guys, make this video be the starting point. From like here on out, we are going to be talking about all things writing. If you hung out from the time I went back to school to now, you would have noticed a lot of the content on my channel shifted from me talking about my writing and my writing experiences and my writing journey to really talking more about the books I'd been reading, more of my reading journey. While I do absolutely love that kind of content, that's not me. That kind of content is not what I intended my platform to be, what I see myself doing, very long term. It was never really a decision to switch content. It just kind of drifted off into the reading because that was literally all I could do. For almost 2 years, I didn't work on some of these projects and I remember them like it was yesterday. With me saying that, I have already gone through and refreshed my mind on these projects that I'm going to be talking about today. When I originally had the idea for this video, I wanted us both to go through my projects for the first time together, but it felt more of a very intimate thing. I wanted my projects and I to have that one-on-one. I took some notes. It's over here. I wanted to write down a to-do list, write down where I had left off with these projects, where I'm at. I'm going to say this last part loosely. I have goals for the projects that we'll be talking about shortly, but I also think that these goals are going to be very loose. So I didn't want to set super high, crazy goals. I wanted to start out small. As I talk about each of these projects, I'm going to set loose goals or just kind of like milestones that I want to hit with these stories. I feel like milestones is a much better word than goals. I think those are all of the channel updates, really, like the first part of this. We're going to get into talking about my projects. Now, the first project that I want to talk about is the main one I've been talking about since I went back to grad school. And this story is Project Ice. This is my high fantasy adventure novel that I absolutely love. This story kind of shocked me with how much I fell in love with it. It's definitely changed a lot from its original form. And that was several years ago when I first introduced this story onto my channel. So with this story, I have written a 0 draft. Maybe it was just a first draft. I think it was just a first draft. That's all I wrote over here. I did end up reviewing the revision plan that I had for this story that was written in August of 2025. And I'm gonna be totally honest, I'm at a different place than I was in August of 2025. That was almost a year ago. We're not doing that. Especially since from last August, I've actually restructured this story. I am working on outlining draft 2. Currently, this story, I have an Excel spreadsheet that was last opened in February of 2026. But that tells you how long it's been and how sporadic the writing process was for me. I have several documents, all of my world building, all of my magic into one Google document. And then I also have one that I made separately for my characters. I have an Excel spreadsheet that is bullet points and the highlights of what I want for each of the chapters. And the story is multiple POV. So it's really trying to juggle the different voices and who's saying this at what point in time in the story. This story has definitely come a long way and it still needs a lot of work. But currently I am sitting at chapter 42 of 55 for the outline. What I've been doing with this outline of draft 2 is taking that Excel sheet that has those bullet points, getting those main beats of the story, and I'm turning them into paragraph form. I've never really written like that before. I was writing like this during school because the short bursts was all my mind could really handle at that point in time. Working in those small increments worked best, especially if it was going to be, I work on it in February and then I wouldn't work on it again until now. I was trying to do those short bursts so I wouldn't get really sucked into the story and then get completely pulled back out and then forget where I was. I know in the last writing video that I had, I talked about this project. I'll leave that video linked down below. The objective of that video video was to just write without goals and to just see what happens, see where I go and things like that. I know at the end of the video, I was fingers crossed, hoping that by the time I came back and I was talking to you guys again about writing and my project, that I would be finished with that outline for draft 2. That's not finished. I did not work on it. I have big plans for this story. As I was looking through, rereading all of my notes and what I'm wanting with this story, this is going to be a huge project. It's turned into quite a story. I'm not mad about it, but it's very much going to be, I think, a project that's probably going to take me like a 5-year plan. Sitting back and looking at this high fantasy adventure novel and what I want it to be, it's going to take me 5 years to get this project there. When I'm in my mid-30s, this could be a pretty solid book, saying to myself, hey, in 5 years, I want to have this story. Where are you ready? Hopefully by this point, it's been in critique partner hands, alpha reader hands, beta reader hands. Other people have seen the story so it can grow and I can get feedback and make the story better and make the characters stronger. The more I think about it, the more I think this story is going to be a duology. Listen, I already know if I want to traditionally publish this book, coming right out the gate and saying that this is going to be a duology is probably not the best thing. I think that this story fits a duology very, very well. It's already plotted out with where I want everything to go. So it's just a matter of sitting down and writing the freaking story. So those are more of the long-term goals that I have for this story. With this story, with it being that high fantasy adventure, I needed to think of it more long-term and then work backwards. I'm a hobby writer and I'm really in no rush. I just want to enjoy the writing process. If I'm in a slightly different position, that's because the camera battery died. Oh my gosh, I almost just fell over. So we were talking about short-term goals, short-term vibes with this story. I'm so ready to just wrap up the outlining process and really get into like actually drafting this story. So I did set a very loose deadline, very loose goal for myself. By June 14th, I want to have the outline completely finished. I think I did the math and it was like 14 chapters. I have 7 free days where I'm like, okay, I could do 2 chapters a day from June 1st to the 14th and boom, we're done. I feel like that's very doable for me, where it also gives me that little bit of the push that I need to slowly start to weave writing back into our routine, start to find a good rhythm, good little beat, you know, to my drum. I can start making progress on all of my writing projects. So that's going to be the main goal that I have for the story for the next couple of weeks. What I'm about to say here is not absolutely something that's extremely necessary, but it's something I need to do for my story. I need to work on the world map. Again, it's not something that I need to take all of this time and, you know, figure all out how big the mountains are or anything. It does not need to be like that. I need to just have a world map where I can know and understand where everybody is in this world, about how long it takes you to get to these other places. When I'm doing this outline, I'm like trying to figure out how long it could take the characters to get to certain destinations. If some people are from the north and they're moving to the west, but then you have people west and they're going down south, are they going to meet somewhere? Or if they are going to meet somewhere, are their distances close enough or far enough? It feels realistic. It's important, but it might be something where I might be getting a little ahead of myself. But honestly, it's something that's bugging the shit out of me. I need to just have an idea of where all these people are. I need to work on that. And I'm not really setting a deadline for that. Not going to be anything set in stone. Oh my gosh, this camera battery's dying. Why are all my batteries dying? This is not fair. Again, I might be in a different spot because this is my 3rd and final battery. If I'm in a different spot or if things look a little weird, it's because I've moved around 3 times. This is something I've been wanting to do. I want to go to the store, get a poster board and write out all of the major plot points, all of the subplot points, circle them or color code everything for the different POVs for the story. And I actually want to do this for book 1 on one side, flip it over, and then do book 2 on the other side, just so I can have a giant piece of paper that has all of that information on there for me. That's something I really want to do as just like more of a visual thing for me. And I think that that is going to take the entire summer, and it might even take, I don't know, 3 or 4 months to do that. But that's something that's on my mind. That's definitely not something that the next 2 weeks I want to do all of that. No. That's something that's going to take a little bit of time. It's what I want to do. I have my Excel spreadsheets and I have the Google documents, but there's something about actually writing it down on paper or a giant poster board that is appealing to me. And I've never done that before. I don't even know where I got that idea from. It was just kind of something that I was like, I actually just want to do it like this. One thing that I want to do after I finish outlining draft 2 is come up with an end word count goal for draft 2 and start drafting. I feel like the June goals for this project is going to be very doable, and it's going to be light enough where the objective of it is to, you know, get me excited to get back into writing again. We're gonna have highs and lows, we're gonna have good days and bad days, but I feel like doing this with this big of a project is going to be a great idea, because I just don't want to go from completely no writing to a very rigorous structured schedule, and I already know that doesn't work for me, and then burn myself out. So I feel like this is really nice to just dip a toe in, get a good feel for the temperature, and then we'll adjust and figure out a good writing routine, writing schedule, writing objectives from there on out. So the next project that I want us to talk about is my favorite child, and her name is Project Traveling Bards. This story, you guys, when I was going through the documents, reviewing everything I have for this story, I love it. I love it so much. So Project Traveling Bards is a cozy fantasy story with emphasis on cozy. This story is kind of like a spin on the German fairy tale Hansel and Gretel. There's this brother and a sister that get sacrificed by their parents to this, I almost said wolf in the woods, to this witch in the woods. If you know the story of Hansel and Gretel, you know what is supposed to happen. Well, that obviously doesn't happen. And in fact, the witch actually spares the children, gives them magical powers, turns them into mercenaries, and they travel the continent killing bad people. And I tell you, I love this story. Anytime I think about this project, I'm sure you can just see the way I just light up when I talk about this. This story is so fun. It's just so hilarious. I vividly remember this story so well. I just know what I want when it comes to this story. But what's so crazy is it's so vivid to me, but when I was pulling up all of these Google documents, it has been since August, almost 2 years since I have worked on this story, wrote in it, did any type of editing or anything like that. This story, I know it needs a lot of work. When I was going back through glancing over everything, I do remember I came into an issue with this story from the second half to the ending, where there's a few things, well, probably more than a few things, but there's something that's not working in this story. A major thing that happened with this project was I was getting a little too dark and ominous, because I had at the time then just came off of writing maybe Project Ice, but it was like a very heavy fantasy story. Cozy fantasies is supposed to be a lot more lighthearted. Yeah, we're still in a fantasy world, but we're here for the good vibes. We're here for the fun. We're here for those humorous moments and things like that. But I remember that Project Traveling Bards took a turn in the writing. Like, that's pure me, that it took a darker turn than what I was expecting. I need to reread this draft. I also want to find some cozy fantasy stories out in the world, you know, out in the wild. And I think I need to read more cozy fantasy to just get my headspace into that cozy, whimsical, because I already have the plot. I already know what that is. It's just a matter of delivering it into that fun, whimsy, cozy type of atmosphere and in like that lighthearted tone. I need to work on that for this story. Honestly, the entire last half will have to be rewritten. I looked at the word count, and the current word count of draft 1 is 50,758 words. I have a hopeful word count for this story. I want it to be about 85,000 words. With Project Ice, we talked about a long-term goal. For this story, I think I could get it ready in a couple of years. I think chipping away at it, doing a little bit more research into the genre, into the comp titles, I really think I could get this story into hands of not readers published, but like maybe critique partners, alpha readers, beta readers, some other eyeballs. I think in a couple of years, I could get this story to that point. And I'm giving myself long deadlines because you never know where life brings you. That is a long-term goal for that story. Project Ice, like I said, it's going to be a duology. This is very, very much going to be a standalone. The ending, not the ending I wrote for it, but the ending that I want is going to be very open-ended. Everything gets wrapped up, but the way I want the book to end, it could be open-ended where we could have an additional book, but you are satisfied enough to close the book and move on with your life. Me as a reader, those are some of my favorite books. Obviously, Project Traveling Bards. There are poems and songs in this story. I haven't really written any. I think I have like 2 poems/songs, and I want there to be more. I haven't really focused too much on like doing that part of it. I'll be honest, I'm not quite concerned about the poems. I'm not quite concerned about the songs songs quite yet. Those will come once I understand my characters more, the world, how they interact with the world. We're not going to get swept away in that, but that's something that I wanted to note. That'll be a little bit later once we're nailing down the characters, the arcs, the structure, the plot points, and things like that. We'll write the other stuff, the fun stuff later. I don't have June goals. They're just kind of more of summer goals. I'm going to casually be working on this story until maybe the end of August. We're just gonna see how it goes. Maybe into September. Who knows? That's not really summer anymore. That's more fall. But again, loose goals. I want to print out and read the first draft that I have. Because it's been so long, I think printing it out, putting it into a notebook, reading it and taking notes like by hand, that's going to be the best for this cozy fantasy. I do want to find some comp titles that align with this story, but I also just want to read more cozy fantasy in general, just to give me that better headspace of writing cozy fantasies. This is definitely not a summer goal. This is just more of like a long-term arching goal for the project. I want to beef it up, which means I need to look more into the characters, make them a lot more complex, stronger world building and magic, because I remember I kind of skimped out on those two things, which is totally fine. I was not too concerned about it in the moment. And then I know I'm going to have to rewrite like the second half to the ending. The third main novel-ish project I want to talk about is my psychological thriller called Project Getaway. This story is nowhere near done or has had as much time spent on it as my other two projects.
Do you guys want to hear the blurb I came up with for this story? I found it when I was going through all of these documents.
This blurb I came up with between the time frame of October and December of 2024. May Tyrell is 25 years old, a registered nurse, and engaged to her best friend and soulmate. But when a turn of events leaves her on temporary suspension from work, her fiance suggests that she takes a week-long getaway with his brother's girlfriend to clear her mind. May takes her bags, a plane, and a bus up to their destination. I don't want to say the name because it's a spoiler. A small mountain town in Utah built over an old mine. Elena Reno has always been known for two things: her love for painting and her love for the mountains. However, she hasn't sold a painting in months, has no money in the bank, and she's struggling with her relationship and impressing her boyfriend's family. She agrees to meet May for a mountain getaway, realizing that now is a better chance than any to get to know the secrets of the Barworth family. If anyone would know the secrets of getting on this family's good side, it would be the fiance, right? Elena packs up her belongings and heads towards the mountains. Insert the name of where they're staying.
It's a spoiler.
Blank is famous for being a resort built over an old mine that collapsed nearly a century ago. Refurbished in the early 1990s and evolving with the times, it makes for the perfect destination for soul-seeking individuals. Some say they leave rejuvenated like a new person. Others, well, sometimes they don't leave at all.
I absolutely love that blurb. I love it so much.
I am very much obsessed with this project. Let me just tell you. That story, she's still in the very, very early works. Like, she is still very much a newborn. She has not had a whole lot of attention. When I came up with this idea in 2024, and I actually had this idea ping-ponging it off of one of my friends, it turned into a lot of, well, what if this happened? What if that happened? And I'm like, oh shit, well, what if that did happen? I thought this project was going to be the one that I was going to be working on while I was going to school, like going back for my master's degree. I said that in a vlog, I feel like, somewhere, where I was like, this is going to be the story. Whenever I start writing, this is going to be that story. It did not work out. There's so much that I want to do with this story. When I was going back to school, I really did not have the creative headspace, like the mental bandwidth, to figure out how to write this psychological thriller. I have the ideas. I have the seeds of the ideas. I could not get the twists and the turns and the what ifs and the suspense and the creepy and the eeriness that I'm going for. That was actually when I switched projects and I went back to working on Project Ice. It was a lot more of a fun project for me to work on when I was going to school compared to trying to work on my psychological thriller. I thought that the psychological thriller was going to be the one that I wanted to work on, but it wasn't. It was not calling to me at all. We're thinking long term again. I actually think by the end of 2027, I could have something with this story. The more I thought about this story and even like looked over the notes for this, I have come to to the conclusion this story would be much better told if it's a very short novel. This story, I think I can turn it into a trilogy, but hang on, a trilogy of like small little popcorn reads, of small little popcorn reads. You guys are probably falling over in your chairs by everything I've said in this video. So for the first book, which is the one I'm currently working on, it's set in our time period between 2022 and now. And we get our two characters, the two people that are telling the story, but then we also have the third perspective, and the third perspective is actually the resort. For book 2, we follow two different perspectives, two different people. We follow the resort. But I want this story to actually take place in the 1990s. For the third novella, small novel, I have ideas for it. I'm stuck between if I want it to be the original timeline, like what actually happened when the mine collapsed, or if I want a time frame that's between the 1990s and then present day. So maybe something like 15 years apart from those two things, like those two timelines. So it would be like what, maybe like the 2010s or something like that. Possibly I have some ideas. This story is still very much a newborn, and it really wasn't given a whole lot of time and energy, which really sucks because I really do like this story, or like the concept I have for this story. But if you're curious, I'm thinking I want the story to be about 65,000 words and probably have all three of the novellas be about that length. All of the characters in those 3 books, I want them to be connected in some way, shape, or form. My summer goals for this project, I really need to replot and brainstorm this story. I have it there, but it really just needs the time, the love, the TLC, if you will, to get back into that headspace. Another summer goal is I do want to possibly outline all 3 of those stories, because if I want them to have some type of connection between all of the characters, then obviously they should all be plotted out very loosely so I know what plot points I want connect over time. I have comp titles, but I want to try to find a few more. There's a very specific plot point, like a plot line that I want in this story. And I really can't tell you what it is because it's going to spoil. It's going to be such a spoiler. There's a plot line in the story that I really want. And when I was writing the first draft, the first few chapters, I was very obvious with the plot line that I'm trying to do. The point I'm trying to make is there's a specific plot line that I want to do really well. I need more practice on how to get there. I also need to read more books in this genre that do a very similar thing. Sometimes you can have this plot line in a psychological thriller and it be very obvious, and it's fine. That's kind of like the point of the story. But then there's also some stories that's not the point. Like you're not supposed to know who it is up until, like 80% of the way through the story. And then you're like, oh my gosh, the signs were all there. How did I not know? That's what I'm aiming for. I want to drop those seeds and I want to hint at those kinds of things, but I don't want it to be obvious. And I'm not even saying, in the first few drafts, I'm going to be able to nail that down. I might be super obvious, but I will say that when I was writing it the first time, I was like, girl, you can do better than that. It's so obvious. So I need to figure out how to fix that plot line. This story for the summer is going to be a little bit more relaxed. We're going to do a little more research. We're going to do a little bit of plotting. Those are going to be the 3 main projects I am going to be working on my channel from here on out, baby, until you hear otherwise from the horse's mouth. I want to talk about some short stories. I have written a few short stories over the years on my channel. I want to revisit them. I also want to write more short stories, but honestly, I'm not putting any type of pressure on myself or those short stories, ones that I've written and ones that I haven't written yet, because I'm very much the type of person where if I want to write a short story, it's one of those things where I'll wake up one day and just write a short story. And then that's it. I love writing the short stories. It's so short and you can just get it all in there and put it, like whatever's in your mind, you put it on the page, and it's just such a great feeling. I don't want to say like, I want to write 2 short stories this year. I'm giving myself the creative freedom where if I feel like I want to write a short story, I'm going to write it. Or if I wake up one day and I want to do a little bit of revising or reread a short story that I've written in the past, I'm definitely going to give myself that opportunity. We're not going to set hard deadlines with the short stories. That is everything that I have for you guys today. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know where you are at in your writing journey, because honestly, I have been so far out of the loop. I literally don't know anything. Let me know all of your writing updates, all of your writing stuff down in the comments below so I can cheer you on. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.